Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Hello and welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation here on Big Country Politics. I'm Manny Diaz. This week our special guests are Dr. John Kuhn, Superintendent of Abilene ISD Schools, and Lindsay Williamson, AISD Executive Director for Secondary Education. Dr. Kuhn, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yes, well, we have a lot to unpack. We talked about these books, what we can say in air quotes, perhaps explicit materials and what have you. We saw strong feelings on both sides of this issue at a recent board meeting. How would y'all summarize what the community is asking of AISD right now when it comes to library material?
Yeah, I think it's incumbent upon all school districts to make sure that the materials they have available for students is representative of the values and mores of the community. And so what's important to remember is that we have systems in place where we seek community feedback on any books that are problematic. We have 25,000 titles in our high school libraries. Some of those were bought decades ago. And so our current librarians, they can't read every one of those books. So we have a challenge process that if a book goes home and a family member, parent sees it and has a concern about it, we ask that they complete a short form. It's about 2 pages long, and then turn that in. That will then go to a committee that basically makes that decision of, is this appropriate for the age group that it's in the library of or not. And that process has changed recently. It's really important that I point this out. Originally, our process for the past several years, maybe decades, was we had a committee of educators, employees of AISD. With some of the new legislation, now we are forming a SLAC, which is a School Library Advisory Committee, and that consists of community members, non-employees, the majority of which are parents in the school district. So now challenges will go to that group for a review to make sure that the materials meet the standards and expectations of the community. It is a tough, I guess, kind of nut to crack, because you want to make sure you don't have explicit things, you don't have things that are inappropriate, but also you want to make sure that there's variety and books of interest to kids. And so, people have different notions of what's appropriate for a 17-year-old or a 14-year-old. And so that's why it's important to have a group of people looking at that rather than just me unilaterally making decisions.
Well, speaking of that, there was a concerned citizen. I think we all know who she is, Tammy Fogel. She got up and she speaks at a lot of school board meetings, city council meetings here in the city of Abilene, and she was kind of very concerned, as was another parents and some other individuals. I think we kind of know their side, how they feel about things. But let me ask y'all this: do y'all believe AISD currently has a problem, or there's an issue with inappropriate or explicit material in its libraries?
So some of the books that were read, we definitely feel like those, if they were challenged, would be removed from our library shelves, and we would invite community members to follow our procedure and our protocol that we have, and let us know that, so that those can be removed promptly if, again, the committee agrees with that. But yeah, certainly some of the things that were talked about were things that I feel strongly would be removed if they were challenged.
Sure, and it's always nice to see, Dr. Kuhn, your openness and willing to talk about these things in school board meetings and being transparent. That's always a nice thing. Lindsay, let's talk perhaps policy procedure.
Sure.
Walk me through this process. How does AISD currently review or remove a book when a parent raises a concern?
So that goes through a challenge process. It's really simple. We have a form that actually new this year is uniform from TA, so it's a form that all school districts are using. It's a library materials challenge form. Pull that form, fill out the information. It is expected that the person who's submitting the challenge has read the book in its entirety, to ensure that we're not pulling a book because of one small part. We have to look at the value of the entire book. But submit that, once that form is submitted, that book, and this is new with Senate Bill 13, is immediately pulled from our libraries temporarily, and from students being able to access them while it's under review. So that challenge form is then sent to our SLAC committee, which is new to us this year, and then from there the SLAC committee reviews it and recommends to the board how to move forward with that specific book.
Sure. Is this process, is this something that's being followed consistently across all campuses throughout AISD?
So it will be followed. I'll be honest with you, in the recent years, we have not received any challenge forms. So while it was a different form in the past, we've always had the same process in place, or a very similar process. The only difference is that it was a locally developed form, and it went to a committee of educators that we would put together. Now it's a TA required form, and it's the SLAC committee that reviews it. But we haven't had any challenges in recent years to be able to say that we have followed that process. But yes, it is a district-wide expectation.
And I think Dr. Taylor Tidmore actually said that in the school board meeting, that he had asked, well, I don't think there have been any challenges of that nature.
No, there haven't been. And on some of the books that were read, we specifically guided individuals to the challenge process, and they refused to challenge the book.
So I'm assuming the final say when a book is challenged, it goes through this committee, the campus committee, or in district leadership, whenever it's all said and done. Is that kind of that in a nutshell?
Not district leadership, the committee.
Or the committee,
The
I'm
committee,
sorry.
Yes. The committee, the new committee, the way it's lined out is it is made up of 7 members that are appointed by the school board, most of them being parents of students in Abilene ISD. They are the voting members on that committee. And then we also have some optional members that are some of our employees that are non-voting, but they are there to advise, because our committee members are not made up of people who are experts in library science. So they will need some advising as we go through this, and they'll want some of the expertise of our librarians and our classroom libraries, our classroom teachers, to give some input on that to give them a better idea. But ultimately, it's the SLAC who will recommend, the voting members who will recommend how to move forward with the book to the school board, and then they'll vote on, they'll have the final decision.
30 seconds or less here, if you can tell me when it comes, I've heard arguments that this takes away from librarians, but perhaps gives a little bit more power to the parents and folks like that. What can y'all say to that when it comes to that?
I don't think it takes away anything from librarians. It's an advisory committee, and having a committee of multiple people coming in and saying, well, in our community, this is our value set here. I think it's a great thing. We do something very similar in student health. We have a student health advisory committee that helps us make decisions related to nutrition and physical education, human sexuality education, some of also hot button topics, right? And so having a group where we get feedback from people that aren't inside the organization is a great thing.
Yeah. Alrighty. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're talking philosophical free speech versus protection, rights versus the district role. That and more when we come back right here on Big Country Politics.
Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, welcome back to the Sunday Conversation here on Big Country Politics. We're here with Dr. John Kuhn, AISD Superintendent of Schools, and Lindsay Williamson, AISD Executive Director for Secondary Education. We're talking about library books, explicit material perhaps. Let's continue this conversation here with you two. Tell me, there was a lot of things that have been said, about this. SB 13 has certainly challenged a lot of what goes into what's regarded as appropriate content, if you will. Tell me, as a school district, where do y'all draw the line between exposure and protection when it comes to that?
So I think it is tricky because we have to remember we're working with a very diverse group of students and families, and where the line is drawn is, of course, we want all of our material to be appropriate. We also want to have material that's interesting to students, and we have to recognize that some of our students, the only way they will gain exposure or experiences to so many things in the world is through reading. So we have to be careful that when choosing materials that go in the library, we are not letting our own religious or political beliefs go into what we're choosing, but at the same time that it's appropriate content for our students. So it's there's a fine line that we kind of have to find when we're selecting those materials.
Yeah, let me ask you all this. I know from a school district standpoint, you guys are really kind of looking out for the students, making sure that everyone sees this, gets opportunities, if you will. Who should make the final call on what a student reads? Individual parents for their own child, or a district for all children? How would y'all put that there?
I don't know that it's an either or, right? I mean, I've raised 3 kids, and ultimately I'm the parent, right? So I think you can offer a variety of reading materials about a variety of topics, knowing that people are going to have different tastes, different interest levels. Should we have science fiction books? Should we have historical fiction? Well, people are going to want to read different things. And when it comes to offensiveness, there are a whole lot of different things that offend different people. And that's one of the real challenges of being a public school in America today. We live in a very polarized society. We live in a society where folks are online, pulled into camps because of just the way social media operates. And we are somewhere in the middle, serving people from all walks of life. And so what we have to do as a school system, we're providing a library so that students can choose books to read. And parents absolutely have the right to review a book and say, I don't want you reading that. Absolutely, for sure. Where things get tricky is when a parent wants to make that decision for the entire student population, 14,600 kids. And that's where nuance comes in, and some people really struggle with that nuanced viewpoint of, wait a minute, I don't like this, I don't think anyone should like it. We kind of, at that point, can't line up with the person, the community member who says, under no circumstances should you have this topic. I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with someone in my office one day, and they argued that under no circumstances should a school have a book that has anything to do with human trafficking. For students. Those books should be unavailable. In fact, the quote they said was, surely you and I can agree that books about sex trafficking should not be available to students. And I thought, my response was, well, when I was a superintendent at Abilene ISD, we invited a speaker to come talk to our kids about the dangers of sex trafficking and how to be safe on the internet. And so I'm not sure I can agree with you on that point. And then the same person said, on the back of your student ID cards, you have the suicide hotline. I think you're planting seeds of suicide in children's heads. And my response to that was, there's a state law that requires us to provide that. So we get to have these little tussles with people about their specific opinions about things that they want imposed on the entire population. And when we disagree, sometimes they get very upset with us because we don't line up with them. Sometimes in the case of the state law, we can't line up with them. Should we have books about teen suicide? If the answer to that is no, you just took Romeo and Juliet off the shelf.
And that's considered a classic.
Would you want kids to be not able to access Romeo and Juliet? That's a part of the Western canon. That is part of conversations that people have. People refer to Romeo and Juliet. Does it end with a teen suicide? It certainly does. Does that mean we're advocating for teen suicide? No. And that's, our position is the nuanced position. We're not over here indoctrinating kids or trying to expose kids to dangerous or harmful things. That's what's often alleged that public schools are doing. That's not what we're doing. We are educating human beings. And sometimes that means giving them a broad opportunity to go to places they can't go to, so they can read about Machu Picchu, so they can do those things. That doesn't mean there are no limits. There are absolutely limits. Those limits can't be set by one individual with a strong opinion. Those limits have to be set by the cultural norm in your community, and that's why a committee is a great solution. And there will be people that they're going to challenge a book, and the committee's going to say, no, that book's okay, and that person's going to disagree. And the thing is, it's okay to disagree sometimes, and some people have trouble with that.
10-4, yeah. This perhaps for both of you, and I'll start with you, Lindsay. What is your message to parents who feel AISD has failed to protect their children?
I hope they'll come talk to us about it and go through the procedures in the right way for us to address that through the policies we have in place. Our intent is never to endanger students or to put materials that aren't appropriate for them in front of and in the hands of students. But I just encourage them to come visit with us and go through the proper channels to make sure that their concerns are addressed.
Yeah, I know, Dr. Kuhn, you can't have a conversation with everyone. This is what platforms are like this. This is what they're made for. but you're a very passionate guy. You can tell that the very first time that we've had a conversation, you can automatically see that right off the bat. You're very active on social media, which is a cool thing. We don't see too many superintendents around Texas who can engage like that. But tell me, what would you be your message to parents who feel that AISD is failed their children?
I would ask, have they challenged the book that they're concerned about? Because if the answer is no, my question would be, why not? If you're saying this book is not okay, we have a process where you can alert us to its presence in the library. One of the books that we were talking about earlier was ordered in 2007. It's been sitting on our shelf, never been checked out. So our librarian may not even be aware that it's there. So if you find a book like that and you tell us that it's there, then we're going to go into this process, and if it is inappropriate, it will be removed.
2007.
The book was ordered in 2007. That librarian no longer works here. The librarian that's there right now may have zero knowledge that we have 25,000 books. And so the challenge process that we've outlined, the purpose of that is for parents and students to help us catch something that may have slipped through in the past. If the folks who are upset about an inappropriate book, and I'm not denying that there are inappropriate books that have slipped through. Our processes aren't perfect in the past. There have been times where librarians bulk ordered a lot of books based on, they don't read every single book. They base it on a list they may have gotten from some catalog or whatever. So is it possible that there are books that have slipped in that shouldn't be there? Absolutely, that's possible. We have a process built to correct that, and we want that to be corrected. We want parents to reach out and challenge those books so that they can be removed from the shelves. And I also want to say, of those 25,000 books, the 99.9% are absolutely appropriate, right? It's a human endeavor run by humans. There will be mistakes. We don't want ever an inappropriate book to find its way in. With the new system with the Slack, every book that gets ordered goes through the Slack before it goes on the shelf. So that will help correct some of the errors of the past where maybe there was insufficient oversight before. That won't be the case anymore. So that's my response. My response is, please use our process and alert us to a concern that you have.
SB 13, that's been talked about, for some time, and certainly put into law here. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Has that helped y'all with all this, at least to kind of create a process?
I'll jump in with my one concern about it, and then I'm going to pitch it over to Lindsay because I think she's going to want to talk about this. My biggest concern at the beginning was the requirement that every classroom library be cataloged. That just seems so difficult because our teachers are teaching. They have a 45-minute conference period, and especially in kindergarten, first grade classrooms, they have lots and lots of very small books. And to catalog every one of those and put them on a list so that we can upload it so parents can see it, I was very concerned about that. Luckily, Lindsay and her team have found some solutions to the things that I was concerned about.
Yeah. SB 13.
So I think it has added some challenges. I think the intent is to provide more transparency to parents in their child's education. So there's challenges that come with it. As we're working through it, we're seeing that there are some benefits, and that we don't ever intend to not be transparent with our families, but this creates an intentional process for that, for open communication, for parents to be directly involved in our process. So while it does create some challenges for us, I think the intent is good, and we're working within it the very best we can to make sure that we're following everything that's required there.
Certainly. Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining us this morning, and thank you, and God bless you as you move forward with all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for Dr. John Kuhn, AISD Superintendent of Schools, and Lindsay Williamson, AISD Executive Director for Secondary Content, Secondary Education, if you will, I'm Manny Diaz. This has been another Sunday Conversation. We'll see you next time. God bless.